Alright guys, welcome back to Batdog Garage. Today's video is going to be part 3 of the sound treatment process of the Stereo Integrity Audi. And the primary focus of today's video is going to be door cards. So I'm going to show you guys problem areas to look for as you work on your own door cards, how to address those problem areas, materials I'm using, how I'm using them. So let's get to it. So in the last video, we went over treatment of the outer door skin and the inner door skin. And the outer door skin is a large flat surface, so we applied 100% coverage of Amplifier Pro to reduce resonance. Even though it had, I believe they were SDS tiles on it that had been applied in the past, we could still hear areas that weren't dead. And so we treated 100% with that. We treated the void where we could hear the difference with the mineral wool. And then I came back and treated the inside of the door with the melamine foam, the Megazord. So at that point, lead sheet, we added over 4 pounds of mass to that inner door skin, and that was all covered in closed cell foam and decoupled. Our primary focus on the door card is because you do have hard surface of the inner door skin and hard surface of this plastic door card. We want to decouple them. So we're going to make efforts to decouple it, and because it is a plastic door card, it's fairly light. It weighs 8.6 pounds. So we're going to add mass to it. And that's the primary focus of what we're doing here, is adding mass to the door card and decoupling it from the vehicle. So at this point, I'm going to show you guys some things that I'm using that I'm likely sure that you guys have not seen used before. And I hope you guys get something positive out of this. Now before we get started treating this door card, I want to go ahead and take a look at things that I need to address before I can actually start applying material. And one of those things is dust and dirt that's on here. And in this instance, I don't only have dust and dirt here, I have melted sonic barrier that is at multiple locations on the door. I've got stuff there, there's some there. These retainer pins that are left in the door, there's 3 of them in here. The others are missing. They all have sonic barrier melted onto them, and along the bottom of the door card you can see where this stuff has dripped and made a mess of the inside of the door card. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and clean all of this and prep it so we can start applying material. Okay, now I've cleaned this panel and I've applied Amplifier Pro. You guys can see where I've applied it to a good portion of the panel. I'm not trying to deaden this panel at all. All I want to do is add mass to it. Now the reason I'm adding mass is, well, it's kind of like Newton. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. So if you go and you try to pull a kid in a wagon, it's pretty easy. You take that same kid, put him in a car, and you try to pull him and move him, it becomes much more difficult. The reason that is more mass. So it takes more energy to excite or move that mass. And that's what we're dealing with here in this panel. So I'm not trying to deaden this panel at all. All I want to do is add mass to it so it takes more energy to make it move. So the next product I'm using is a urethane expanding foam from US Composites. And they offer this in 5 different densities, which are 2, 3, 4, 8, and 16 pounds. And when I refer to the density of the product, what I'm talking about is as I mix and pour this and it expands, when it fills a volume of 1 cubic foot, each material is going to weigh a different amount. The 2-pound density stuff expands at a much greater rate than, say, the 16-pound stuff. So since it expands at a greater rate, it's not as dense, so there's not as much weight to it. So you guys have seen me use this 16-pound stuff in the spare tire well of the Audi before to fill that void between the outer skin and that inner wall that we built, and it made that whole area dead. So I'm going to use this today on the door cards, and I'm going to show you how I'm using it with something as simple as aluminum tape. So you guys can see the foam is expanded. I'm pretty happy with where it's at. And you can see just the aluminum tape has kept it back out of that mid base area. So that's what I was looking for. And then over here, our aluminum tape gave me the perimeter and kept it away from where the factory cabling runs. So I'm happy with how that turned out. We've got foam in this area here, and that is again a density of 16 pounds per cubic foot. Okay, so now that the foam has cured, I had the opportunity to weigh the door card, and it now weighs 12.8 pounds. Prior to treatment, this door card weighed 8.6 pounds. So that's a 48.8% increase in mass of the door card. That's definitely going to help when we power up that big 24. So this foam not only helps add mass to the door card, that's going to help send all of the sound produced by this mid-bass driver into the interior cabin, into the listening space. Around here we have this nice rubber gasket that Audi uses. Between that and what I've done here, this will be well sealed to the door card, and we've reduced our chance of vibration around this area. So the next thing I'm going to do is look at mechanical fasteners like all that attach the door card to the door panel and stuff like this. This is the puddle light that goes on the bottom. We've got a switch here, makes noise, and we've got the emergency light over here. This is pretty solid, but we're still going to address it, ensure that it doesn't make noise. And then we have one final piece of treatment to do to this door before it's ready to go back in. So in this shot, you guys will see that I have door pins here, and there's a piece of foam on this location pin, and this foam just serves to go around this ring here so that you don't have hard surface to hard surface contact between the door card and the interior door skin. You'll notice that over here we're missing one. So in the last video I told you guys when we were using the closed cell foam, I told you guys we were going to use that later to decouple pieces in other areas of the car. So a little piece like that, we bring it over, we're going to cut our lines here so this can go on, and we'll put that on, and now we've got closed cell foam decoupling just like we have here. Now these door pins, this one's tight because I've already wrapped it. You guys can see how this one's loose. Now the easy fix for that is to just take some cloth tape like Tessa, and we're going to wrap that on this. This is the portion that actually clips in. So we're just going to wrap this around. And then we'll press this in, and that will get rid of the rattle. That's in and tight. So none of these guys are making noise now. So with these door pins tight and not rattling now, and decoupling material on our hard points for the location pins, I still have stuff like this switch that needs attention. And for that switch, all I'm going to do is run a bead of hot glue here, because that can be removed later, but that's going to stop everything from moving. Now one more area I want to address is this puddle light here, and if I move, I don't know if you guys will see or be able to hear that in the video, but you can see how much that is moving. So this isn't a tight fit in the car, it can rattle. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this guy out. And we are going to treat this guy so that it can go back in the car and not rattle. Now the material I'm going to be using here for this puddle light is just Hushmat's quiet tape roll. And again, I'll put a link in the description for this, but I'm just going to measure and cut a little foam to go on each end. And what this will do will take up slack and decouple the puddle light from the door skin. Okay, so we've got a little bit of foam around there that'll decouple on both ends and take up the gap that we had to keep that from rattling. So now we'll come over here, put this guy in place, and make sure that our material worked. And it does, no rattle there. And all of the play that we had is now gone. Let's take a look at this passenger rear door before I put the door cards on. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 locations for the retaining clips for the door card to snap on. Right here I have 1, 2 locations for locating pins that are on the back of the door card. And then the other openings like this one and this one, since they're small, I just covered with Damplifier Pro. The issue is right here. I want to show you guys what I found and what I'm dealing with. This is factory 16 gauge speaker cable that comes and plugs in to the top of the factory speaker housing. And inside that factory speaker housing, it comes in to the speaker, and then you see there's a pair of female spade terminals. So that's the way the factory setup works. You bolt this guy in place, you plug this in, connect your speaker to the spade terminals, and you're good to go. Now, in this car, at some point in its life, someone decided to run aftermarket speaker cable, also 16 gauge, also has female spade terminals on it. That's okay, but that's not the issue. I understand wanting to run aftermarket speaker cable. My issue comes in over here. Let me get my light set up for you guys. So my issue comes in right here where they ran it. If you guys can see right here, you can see some blue in that boot. That is because they ran the cable through the boot, pierced the boot, ran cable outside of the boot, and then it came back into the boot. That's not the major issue here though. The major issue, it comes over here once you remove this boot from the connector on the body. As we look at this, you can see that there's hardly any space here. There is this purple retainer clip. That clip, you pull it out and you can actually depress this and remove this connector from the body by pushing it inside the car. Now, if I go further down and I look for this blue speaker cable, I'll get over here and see, you guys can see that? This cable is actually ran between the connector that's there and the body of the car. So that is a pinch point for that cable. You've got a hard edge there of the sheet metal, and then you've got your cable pressed right against it. So that's an issue, not something I suggest doing. And I'm going to show you guys, this isn't that bad compared to what I found up front. So let's move up to the front now. So at the front of the car, I have same thing. I got my factory speaker cable that would plug into the housing. But you guys will see this in the previous videos. In part 1, where I was removing the sonic barrier, you guys will see that there was speaker cable just chilling right here that had some, I believe they were bullet connectors on it. Again, this was ran by a previous owner. The speakers that were installed in the car were connected to these guys, and you can see the sonic barrier melted on it. They were connected to these guys. But there's also another pair of wires here, another speaker cable inside this car door. So I kind of understand the process here. They wanted better cable than the factory stuff, so they ran it. But in this door, you only had a mid and a tweet. So I don't understand 1, 2, 3, 4 speaker cables here. Now, the big issue is, you can see there's on this side, if we come to the cabin side of the car, you can see 1, 2, 3 speaker cables that were ran from here to here. And based on what I saw in the back, I was positive that the front is the same way. So if I come over here and look at that. Let me see if I can get some light on this for you guys. If I look at this, you can see the cable ran in there. And not only that, this panel is kind of deformed where this goes. So there's this smaller one is ran under right here, and then the larger one and then the blue one are ran to the side. We don't need to do that for a mid and a tweak. There's no reason to run 3 additional. I'm not sure why that happened, but I'm going to fix this and I'm going to show you guys how I fix that. So we'll have to take care of this before the door cards go back on. So I removed these guys from this boot and from between the connector and the body panel, and one of them, I believe it's this one here, you guys should be able to see the cut that's right there. See if we can get that to show up in the video. So one of them was actually cut, the insulation was cut on it, and that's because it was pressed between the connector there and the body panel. So at this point I went ahead and I removed this purple plastic piece I told you guys you could just pull out. You just end up prying on the sides, and if you pry on the side you can pull it out. So at that point you've got a tab right here up top that you press, and that panel will go into the body of the car. You can see it disappear in there. And on the cabin side on this Audi, there's a nice foam plug here, and you pull that foam plug and now you can pull your connector in and have a little bit more to work with. I didn't get to film this because it was difficult working between here and on the body side, but I have the door connector and the body side connector separated from one another, and if something like this is daunting to you guys, I'm going to give you a tip. Now, if you're unsure of doing something like this when you start working with the connectors at the door, for some people it can be daunting, it can be like intimidating to do that. My tip is to go to the junkyard. Go to the junkyard, experiment there and learn before you mess with your own car. Not only that, you can go to the junkyard, get connectors, and use additional pins in your own connectors so you can run speaker cable from the body side to the door in a factory manner. So this is a connector I got from the junkyard, and going to the junkyard not only gives you parts to work with, but it allows you to see how it all works together. So on this car, this is the way we viewed it. We saw this side of the connector, and on this side of the connector there's nothing that allows us to depress, detent and pull so we can release the door side connector from the body side. So if we flip this over, we can see right here there's a small detent, and then if we use that, we can pull the 2 pieces apart. So it's only right here on the side that was hidden to us as it's installed in the car that we can press that. So you can barely see right here the tab of that guy sticking out. So you have to depress that, and that will allow you to pull. And it's going to take some effort to pull these apart. This is a tight fit. So that's the advantage of the junkyard. You get to experiment there, and you have parts to work with. So now I'm going to show you guys how we're going to use these to run additional speaker cables in our door. Now I've got my body side connector, my door side connector, a small pick tool, and I also have a terminal release tool set. Pick this up on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description, but we're going to use these guys to disassemble these connectors, pull parts from them, and we're going to use those parts in the connectors on the car. So we've got our body side connector and our door side connector here, and I'm going to use the pick tool to disengage these purple pieces, and these purple pieces are just locking tabs that keep pins from coming out. With these pushed in, it locks the pins in place. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and remove both of these. With these disengaged, we can remove pins here, but they can be in place when you push pins in on the car side. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to get this guy. We're going to pry this one open and remove the factory Tessa tape. Alright, so that's removed. We're going to come over here and get this guy out of the way. And get this one. And you guys will see on this one, it's very different from what we had on the door connector. So this actually comes in and locks everything in place. You can see that it's almost like a zipper. So at this point we have our connectors ready to be removed. Now on this Audi, this is the main power wire for the door. These two right here, you got positive and negative. But right here, these two, these guys are your speaker cables that were ran into the door. This blue with yellow trace and brown with green trace, those are the same speaker wires we saw at the connector on the door. So we're going to go ahead and remove some guys down here, and we're going to use those to power our tweeter. Now this is the terminal set I've been using, but as luck would have it, when I'm getting ready to shoot video, the one that I need to use decides to come loose. So honestly, what I ended up doing was taking a pair of pliers and cutting the connector up and removing the pins that I needed. So you guys will get to see those get installed, but terminal set, everything in here is crimped. All of these guys are crimped in place, and on the instance of this guy right here, the crimp didn't hold, and yeah, so anyway, let's move on with the video. Now, I've already installed one wire into this connector for our tweeter, and I've got the other one here. I'm just going to show you guys how these go in. So you'll see the shape of this here, and it's fatter on this side and kind of nothing there. So all of the excess is on this top side as you view it. If we look at that top side, you guys will see that there's actually a little locking tab there. That locking tab is going to go into the connector with the locking tab to the center of the connector. So it's going to be difficult for you guys to see in the video as I do this, but we're just going to put this in with that locking tab facing toward the center, and you'll hear it click, and it is in. So now I can go ahead and press and lock everything back in place, and I have my tweeter wires on my door side connector. So now I just need to do the same thing on the body side, and I need to make sure I maintain continuity as far as positive and negative from one side to the other, so that I know what I'm working with. At this point, I still need to trim and attach my actual speaker cable. For a tweeter, these wires are going to be fine over this short distance. It's not going to be an issue. A lot of you guys will know that current over distance is what's important with your cabling. So if I'm running a lot of amplifier power over a 8-gauge cable, it can only be for a short distance. If I'm running it over a long length in a vehicle, I'm going to need a larger gauge wire. So for a tweeter, as little power as the tweeters are actually going to see, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this gauge cable. Now you guys will notice my wires here are orange and my wires over here are purple. That's not important because all we're looking to do is add connectors to the door pins. With this cable ran through the door, I went ahead and soldered the pair of wires on the door side connector, and that is because at this point you want to take the ones for the cabin side and temporarily tape them in place so that you can check polarity of your wiring through the connector. And I'm going to do that with something as simple as 9-volt battery and the distant end of the cable. And I have a polarity checker, but I'm going to show you guys this because it would make it easy to see how you can do it without needing a bunch of test equipment. If this is wired properly, silver is positive, black is negative, the speaker should move up. And it does. So I have everything wired in correct polarity through the connector. Now I'm going to solder the cabin side wires to the pins, and then we can move on. So I went ahead and loomed the tweeter cable that we have in the door, and I loomed the body side of it that is going back to the amplifier. So with that out of the way, the next thing I want to do is focus on the cabling that is here for the factory mid-bass wiring. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and disconnect this reusable zip tie they have here and open up the wiring and this grommet. We're going to get this guy out of the way, and we're going to work on the wiring and cabling so that we can run our factory speaker cable to the back of where the driver is going to be. And you guys will see that I'm actually working my way back this way into the door. So at this point I need to, these cables are on this clip right here. I need to disengage this clip and pull that out, and then I can get these cables pulled through and I can work on them through the mid-bass speaker location and get the cabling cleaned up more here. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and run these guys under this bracket back through the factory cabling routing. Okay, so now I have plenty of cable to work with here, and you guys will notice this factory clip here just snaps in. So I am not going to mess with that. I don't have any more of those style zip ties here, so this is just going to be me working to get this split out to go over here to the mid-bass driver, and the rest of these guys can go over here to that factory grommet. And once I have this split off the way I want it, I can remove this connector and we'll just have this ready to connect to our mid-bass. Okay, so we've got our cabling sorted here. This is our mid-bass driver, and then we've got all of our cabling that's going to go back over here to this factory grommet. At the same time, I want our tweeter wires to come and pass through the factory cabling routing, and I want that to come out through this grommet as well. So I'm going to go ahead and run these guys. So that's going to get that there. And now I can go ahead and start running our factory cables back where they belong, with the exception of the mid-bass driver. And you'll notice I'm going to go ahead and clip that factory snap back in, and right here we have our cables ran that will come back to our side impact airbag and back to our window motor control. So at this point, all of our cables are here. We can take this guy, put it back, and we have all of our cabling ran through our factory grommet. We're going to bring our tweeter wire up with it, and we're going to reuse this guy. There we go. So now we go ahead and connect. Actually, I'm going to hold off on this one. I want to get the window motor put back in place. So that has all of our cabling ran to proper locations. We've got these guys here. This is our mid-bass wiring that can come in to, I just dropped it. That can come into our mid-bass. You see these, the cabling for the tweeter. I'm going to go ahead and attach those to the factory cable that comes through the door, so that's out of the way and it's never going to be in the way of the window track. But that is it. We now have, from the body side to the door side, 2 speaker connections that are, so at this point we're done wiring the car. The only thing left to do is reconnect the body side and the door side connectors there at the door jamb. To recap, we ran our tweeter cable from the pins that we installed over here, factory cabling locations, up through the factory grommet, and I have access wrapped around here. Now, one thing I have left to do is go ahead and take this tweeter cable and zip tie it to the factory cabling so it's out of the way and ran in the factory locations. Our mid-bass wiring here, I need to trim this off and put some ferrules on. That will go directly to the driver. Now what I've just made here is a template for the back side of this door card, and I've also got one for the rear doors, and you guys can see I'm just using ram board to make this. So at this point I'm going to take my template and I'm going to transfer it to some Luxury Liner Pro, and the Luxury Liner Pro will give me the ability to decouple this door card from the vehicle. So at this point I've trimmed around this door handle, but I also have attachment points along here where this door card will attach to the door, and I need to trim out the luxury liner there, make sure that's going to give me clearance. So it's a process of just trim, test fit, trim, test fit until the door card goes onto the door. Now what I'm doing at this point is just taking some of the spare luxury liner that I have here, and I'm filling voids on the back side of this door card. So since this stuff is 3/8 of an inch thick, at some places, like say right here on the back of this pocket that's on the door card and right here at the back of this foam, I've got some areas where I simply can't apply the luxury liner because the thickness of this stuff would cause issues where it fit against the inner door skin. So just like in the sound treatment video where I did the floor of the car, I was talking about checking fitment. When you cut this, you're going to have to check fit as it goes back onto the car. And you guys can see here, this was the what I started with, and I ended up having to cut down quite a bit off the bottom. Now that's not a big issue because the pieces that you end up cutting off, this area that I cut off right here on the bottom, I'm taking those scraps and I'm adding them back into the low recessed areas of the door card so I can build back up to this surface in the low areas. And this stuff is heavy, I'm adding mass to it. So all of these low areas that would otherwise just be empty between the door card and the door skin, I'm just packing those areas with this Luxury Liner Pro to mass load the door card. And you guys can see, just to stick this stuff together and laminate the pieces of Luxury Liner Pro together, I'm just using Second Skin's contact adhesive. So nothing special here, just laminating pieces, building up the surface in these low areas, building up mass in the door card. Now another thing that I'm going to do is use 3M's Dual Lock to attach the Luxury Liner Pro to the door card. And you guys can see here, I've already got a couple of spots marked Velcro. I've got one marked there that I'm going to relabel with my Sharpie. But this is just to attach the luxury liner to the door card. And by marking the locations, anyone that ever has to do service on the vehicle can look and see easily where the Velcro is and where they need to separate this luxury liner from the door card. So just a little something to make maintenance easier down the road for whoever would have to dig into the car. And we're going to mark our Velcro location and label Velcro. There we go. So you guys can see how this door card looks now. We've got our spots for Velcro that are labeled so that if any point anyone ever has to rip into this, they know exactly what they're looking at. And these low spots, you can see where I've added Luxury Liner Pro and built it up in what would be otherwise an empty cavity on the back of this door card. I couldn't go any higher than the back of this pocket, so I went ahead and built it up there and used that. So if you guys remember in the last video, I talked about using closed cell foam as a decoupling layer, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to apply closed cell foam to all of the high points here along this area here. There's a small tab here. So all I'm going to do is apply this stuff to the areas on the door card that are now exposed and are the high points that will come in contact with the door skin. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this Luxury Liner Pro, and you guys will see the Velcro makes it easy. So we'll pull this up and you guys can start seeing just how thick I've got this stuff layered up. This is the thickest part, and I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers thick there. So we've got a nice amount of Luxury Liner Pro there. Now I'm going to treat this area with closed cell foam. Speaking of closed cell foam, you guys have seen me use this before, Hush Matte Quiet Tape. The factory connector that went to the door, I just wrapped that to the main power connection here for the door card, and I taped it up. So now I'm going to laminate some closed cell foam to this, and then we'll move on. So that has this main area laminated together, and if you guys will notice, this adhesive here, that's from an old application of it where I was coating something else. Again, these are scraps. So this stuff is dry, it's not tacky at all, and you guys can see the areas where I did spray in the video where I wanted to actually stick it down. So I'm going to cover this small area right here with, again, more scraps. So I'm just going to cover that real quick, and then we'll move on to the final bit of material that we're going to apply on this door and move on. Marking that Velcro around the Luxury Liner Pro. If you forget, it will also come in handy to show you where you need to trim the closed cell foam on the back side. But the closed cell foam will also pick up dirt as you handle it, and it will show you those areas. I can feel one here. And there's one right here. And final one here. And there we go. This is ready to go back onto the door card. Oop. Got a straggler there. Do some final fit trimming around this door handle. That in, start attaching our Velcro. This tucks in, attach our Velcro there. There we go. So that is the door card treated. We have closed cell foam on all of our high spots. We've got our Luxury Liner Pro. Looks like I could use another piece of Velcro there, so we'll do that. But we've got our high spots treated with closed cell foam. We've got our Luxury Liner Pro installed and laminated to add more mass to the door card. And yeah, so all that's left is we'll put this piece of Velcro in place, mark the location. So my GoPro overheated due to the battery discharging. I lost a little bit of video. I'm going to show you guys what I did, and then we're going to end this video. So I added a little closed cell foam around the mid base location so that this gasket here from Audi has a little tighter fit here, a little better seal. The speaker connector that plugged in here, I just went ahead and used Hushmatch quiet tape, taped that to the factory harness, and that way when it plugs in, there's no chance of this connector banging against the inner door skin. All of our high points are hit again with closed cell foam All the contact points where it's going to touch that inner door skin have closed cell foam on them. And then we used a ton of Luxury Liner Pro on this door card. So the result of all of this was an increase in mass on the door card and decoupling the door card from the inner door skin. So when we started, this door card weighed 8.6 pounds. It now weighs 18.8 pounds. That's a 118% increase in mass of the door card. And not only is that increase in mass good for us, the fact that it's decoupled from the inner door skin ensures that if this 24 does start vibrating and making this panel resonate, this will not make a bunch of noise slapping against the inner door skin. All of our rattles should be eliminated, but we're going to power it up. We're going to find out real soon what this big 24 does to the car. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time.